Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Phlinger, and today we're going to be discussing the most important dinosaurs that you can tame on a solo playthrough of Ark Survival Evolved. Now, I'm going to be covering the solo ones or ones that you can get on the public servers. I'm not going to be covering. None of this list is going to be geared towards a PvP mindset. None of this is going to be geared towards anything other than being able to progress through the game, the most requested dinosaurs or the most required dinosaurs that you need in order to be able to go through and solo the entire game on the island. We're not going to be covering the center, Ragnarok, or Scorched Earth right now. If you guys want, I can go and I can do a list on those. But these dinosaurs that I picked, the ones I selected, are going to be specifically designed to change the way you play the game or to enable you to be able to progress the game in different and better ways. This list of dinosaurs that I selected, they are of course my opinion. Other people's opinion may vary. You disagree with the selections that I made, go ahead and feel free to leave it in the comments down below. I really look forward to seeing everybody's opinions on the selected dinos or which ones that you feel should have been selected. And without further ado, let's get into the first dino. The first dino that I've selected is the Ovis. Alright, now the Ovis can be found throughout the island, different varying spots. It prefers the snower biomes, but you can also find it over on the black sand over there, and I'll go show you a few spots where I found them in the past. But when you find an Ovis, it's very important that you swoop down on it and then you're able to get it and tame it as quick as possible, because they generally tend to die really fast out in the wild when they're left alone all by themselves. Now, how you tame an Ovis is you use a sweet vegetable cake. I'll provide the recipe for the sweet vegetable cake, and it doesn't matter what level of Ovis that you have, one sweet veggie cake will be able to tame it regardless of the level. And then once you have a breeding pair of Ovis, you can take them and breed them, and you can get the little babies. Once you have that, you can slaughter the babies with a sword. You have a sword equipped and you walk up to the babies and then you can slaughter them. You get a slaughter option in order to be able to kill them and quickly harvest them for their mutton. Now the mutton, and this is the reason why I chose them as the number 6 dino on this list, is because the mutton enables you to bypass a lot of the kibble requirements on the island. Especially, and which is really important as a solo player, because a lot of times you won't have the ability or you won't have the time requirement to be able to craft a massive kibble farm like the one I have down there. And the mutton allows you to tame a lot of stuff, not as good as kibble, but almost. And that's the important part. Now, wild Ovis, they can be found throughout the island, but one of the easiest spots that I've been able to find them is right across from the redwoods on this black sand area, like this one right here. Now, another common spot for them is straight north of here and then veer around to the left. That's that whole alleyway right there in between the two mountains going over to the snow biome and then over on this side of the mountain of the snow biome. If you're looking for Ovises, those are the best spots that I know to look. All along this black sand over here, and then up north, just straight north this way, and then curve to the left and go over that way. But when you find an Ovis out in the wild, you have to be careful that you're able to tame them. You're able to grab them and then tame them as quick as possible, because they don't last long out in the wild. Number 5 on the list, Therizinosaurus. Now, a Therizinosaurus, they enable you to be able to mine or harvest just about everything there is on the island. If it's not stone and it's not metal and it's not obsidian, they will harvest it better and faster than any other dino there is. Now, the only caveat there is that their weight is not, they have 0 weight reduction, as per the beaver, the mammoth, the Doedicurus, the Anki, those dinos right there. The Therizinosaurus does not have the weight reduction, but the Therizina, they can harvest everything that you need. If you're looking for fiber, if you're looking for thatch, if you're looking for mushrooms, wildflowers, anything like that, these guys are your dinosaur of choice for going out and harvesting anything. Now, the only downside with these guys is they are herbivores. You can't force feed them raw meat like you can regular carnivores, but if you carry around some of the sweet vegetable cakes, then you can use them to feed them, which is another reason to have more sweet veggie cakes. Out in the wild, the Therizinosaurus, or when you're riding a Therizinosaurus out in the wild, they are just a powerhouse. These guys, there's not much that they can't tank. There's not much that they can't kill. And then while you're at it, they'll harvest everything that you possibly could need. And just like this Diplodocus, it just goes through it like butter. And then it'll also even harvest the meat, plus the raw meat, the prime meat, all sorts of stuff. Now, the only downside with Therizinosaurus is that you can only unlock their saddle at level 69 plus, which means that they are a mid to late game dinosaur. But once you get one, you'll be able to harvest every single thing that you possibly want. I've seen a lot of just beginning survivors in Ark. When they're starting out, they will start out by taming a Therizinosaurus as quick as possible and just having it follow them around until they're able to unlock the saddle. They're that good. Alright, for the next dinosaur on this list, we need to head down into the water, because this next one is a water dino. And you might think that it's the Mosa over there, but no, it is unfortunately not the Mosa. We are going towards the Basilosaurus. The Basilosaurus will enable you to unlock all the rest of the underwater dinos on the map. Now, because the Basilosaurus enables you to harvest the jellyfish that are out in the ocean, the Cnidaria, for the biotoxin enables you to make shocking tranquilizer darts, plus they're also immune to the attacks of eels, and they're immune to the attacks of the Tusoteuthis. Now, the Tusoteuthis, and then they will still do damage, but they won't be able to hold on to them, and they won't be able to shock them. Now, periodically, the Basilosaurus, they will produce oil. Now, the oil actually has a spoil timer, but you can move it into a refining forge and turn it into gasoline, but you do have a spoil timer on it. The only problem with the Basilosaurus is they can't go very deep. Once you start going over a certain depth, they will start taking crush damage. Now, in order to remove that crush damage, go back above the threshold, and then you'll be fine. Right here, harvest these guys, get their sweet biotoxin, and move on to the next dino. Now, the reason why I posted these guys on this list at all is because in order to tame the higher level dinos, and in order to unlock most of the stuff in the oceans and on the island, you need to have a Basilosaurus. They should be either your first underwater tame or close to your first underwater tame. They are that important, and they will help you out tremendously on the journey to explore the underwater islands. Finding lone Basilosauruses out in the wild can be kind of challenging at times, and sometimes it can actually seem really rare. But I find that the majority of Basilosauruses that I find is when I'm generally not looking for them, and then I find a bunch of them. But usually whenever you find Basilosauruses out in the wild, they'll have herds of stingrays and ichthyornis following them. One of the easiest ways of removing them is by using tail swipe of a Baryonyx to get rid of them, and then just quickly remove them. Or you could use a much larger dino, go up behind them, and just give them a quick bite, and that'll get rid of the majority of the mantis. And Basilosauruses out in the wild, they're passive tames. So in order to tame them, you have to put the Therizinosaurus kibble or the meat, whichever one you prefer, in your 0 slot, go up to them. And also, not to mention that a well-leveled Basilosaurus can easily get hit points and damage upwards of comparable to, I would say, a really well-leveled Plesiosaur and a lower-level Mosa. And when I say lower-level Mosa, I mean around level 100 tamed in the wild to about 120. They are that good. And their melee damage and their hit points, it more than makes up for any inability to go deep down or anything of the sort. And their crush depth is generally right below the upper cap of Mosa or a Plessy in the wild, so you can kill Mosas and Plessies with a Basilosaurus quite effectively. Alright, now the next dinosaur on the list is probably the most underrated dinosaur that I've seen in Ark so far, and that is the Baryonyx. Now, the Baryonyx, while not only being a powerhouse on land, here, let me show you just how fast it can take out this Carno that's over here terrorizing this Gallimimus. Very quickly. Plus, it can harvest the stuff as well. And not only do they run fast on land, but when they go into the water, they go equally as fast. Plus, they also have a whirlwind spin attack that stuns dinosaurs in the area. So if you get into a pinch underwater, you can quickly tail swipe, stun everything, and either get out of dodge or use the time available from stunning to quickly kill whatever it was that was attacking you. Plus, also, the spin attack does work on alpha raptors and alpha megalodons that you can get into the water. It won't work on land, though. See, you can't even use it. I'm right-clicking right now, just in case you didn't know. Yeah. Through some very extensive testing, I can also assure you they are probably one of the best cave mounts in the game. So if you intend on taking your Ark experience really far, as in fighting the bosses and doing stuff like that, and eventually making it into tech tier and going through grabbing all the artifacts and just seeing how far you can take your solo experience in the game, a Baryonyx will be a requirement because you will be having to farm a lot of the caves in Ark. And one of the most effective ones for doing that is the Baryonyx. Now, also, what also makes them even better inside of the caves is when you meet up with the Arthropluras inside the cave, they have a harder time hitting you on the back of a dino. It still will happen, but not nearly as much as, say, on the back of a frog or on the back of a saber tooth or a thylacoleo. And the only caveat that I can think of with a Baryonyx, the only downside with them is that they will only eat fish meat. They exclusively eat fish meat. They will not eat any other meat that you possibly give them. One of the best ways that I've come up with in order to let them, if you want to, say, store them in your base for a long time, is cook the fish meat before you leave it on them, so where it will not spoil as quickly. But other than that, these are the best caving mount that I've had. All right, and coming in at the number 2 slot, well, it's actually a mix of two different dinos. Now, I couldn't decide which one of these two was better, and in my experience, it's generally been a mix of both of them together comes out to be the best results that I could possibly get. Now, and that would be a T-Rex and an Allosaurus. Now, with the Allosaurus, a lot of people will look at an Allosaurus and they'll say, oh, well, that's, it's just not as good as a T-Rex. And that's not true. An Allosaurus, a good leveled Allosaurus, one that has been imprinted and bred up really nicely, can have stats that are easily as comparable to a really good T-Rex. And here, let me show you. This right here, 35k health, 675 melee damage. It's got a lot more stamina, but the Allosauruses, they move faster, they don't get stuck, and they, with the alpha pack bonus that the alpha attack gets, they end up doing more damage in the long run than a T-Rex, than a group of 3 T-Rexes will. Group of 3 Allosauruses, that is. And it's been my experience, say, like when doing the boss fights, that I want to have a mix of Allosauruses and T-Rexes. Generally, I will have about 6 Allosauruses, so where I will have a really good source of high mobility dinosaurs in the boss fights, and then I'll have usually around 12 or 13 T-Rexes. Now, the T-Rexes, they're really good at making a pincer maneuver so where they can stop the boss from moving all around. And once the T-Rexes get in there and use their massive bulk to block the boss from moving, the Allosauruses come in and really do the work. The Allosauruses do a ton of damage, especially when you're riding the Allosaurus and you use the right-click ability, which is the Alpha Pack attack. Now, when you're riding the Allosauruses, you can notice that you have the Alpha attack by the green jaws that are up in the right-hand corner, and also the glowy effect that's on the back. And when you right-click, you cause a bleed attack on them that slows them and reduces the amount of damage they do. Right. Now, and together, all of these Allosauruses, when they're combined with, say, a Yutyrannus, and then the Rexes inside of a boss fight, the amount of damage that they can dish out in a short period of time it's quite substantial. Notice this Allosaurus right here, the one I'm on right now, Death. This one is hitting for 507. It's really insane just how much damage an Allosaurus can do. And I think Allosauruses are kind of underrated in the amount of damage they can do and the amount of utility they can put forth when it comes to the boss fights and stuff like that. Now, when taming an Allosaurus compared to a T-Rex, they're pretty much the exact same. But in order to tame an Allosaurus, I would recommend killing the majority of its pack and only leaving the one that you intend to tame. Because when you're trying to knock them out, remember, the Alpha takes reduced damage. And then also, when knocking out a T-Rex, really, it's the exact same concept as just about anything. Knock it out, tame it. All right, now before we progress into the #1 slot, I wanted to give a couple honorable mentions. And the reasons, and by doing this, you'll understand why I didn't include any of these dinos on the top 6 list that I'm currently doing. Now, the honorable mentions are for these guys. Right, now these guys right here, they're all, and picture there's also a saber-tooth here. I do have a saber-tooth, I just forgot where I left him. All right, and these guys right here, they're all kind of a natural progression as you go through the early stages of the game all the way to the late stages of the game. Now, are they completely necessary? No, not by any means. They're not completely necessary at all. Are they fun? Oh, hell yeah, they're fun. Each individual one of these guys is fun in their own right, but they don't have anything that absolutely says, hey, you have to have this in order to do this. None of these dinos are like that. Now, with the dire bear, he's kind of like an early Therizinosaurus if you can get one early on. And I do have a video on how to tame a really high-level dire bear at really low level using only primitive stuff. I'll put a link to that down below. And also, the direwolf, they kind of go hand in hand with the saber-tooth. Which one do you want? Pick your poison. You can take the left or you can take the right. Do you want one that has armor, or do you want one that has extra damage and hit points? That's the difference between a saber-tooth and a direwolf. Both are good, and both are basically just a choice, whichever one you prefer. The Daeodon, they have the ability to heal things as they go, which makes them very cool. They have a really high food stat, which they're going to be burning through it a lot. They're actually kind of easy to tame. You just throw a bunch of food on them, and then let them tame up, and they do it at record time. But nothing about them screams they are a must-have. The Equus/Unicorn, while they are really cool, and you can use their saddles as a mortar and pestle, none of it's mandatory. Yes, it's a nice luxury to have, but none of it is mandatory. The Thylacoleo, while the Thylacoleo has so many different uses that you can do as a solo player, none of it's mandatory. All of it can be, you can bypass a lot of it with using taming pins and stuff like that. But once you actually have a really nice, well-bred Thylacoleo, your use of taming pins will quickly diminish as you finally realize that, hey, your Thylacoleo can face tank Rexes and you can shoot it in the face without having to take too much damage. Or, say, like, you want to go out and cling onto the side of a mountain while you snipe at a Giga in the distance. You can do this. Thylacoleo does enable you to do that. That is still just a luxury item. It's not a requirement by any means. But out of this group of them here, I would say the Thylacoleo is by far my favorite. But he is not on this list. And these are the reasons why I did not include these dinosaurs on the list. And once again, please think that they're... Imagine Sabretooth over there in the distance that you just can't see. He's invisible. He's hiding. All right. And I just forgot where I left mine. Now we're going into the number 1 slot. Which dino of any of these can you not live without on the island? And that is an Argentavis. An Argentavis will enable you to do so much on the island. They are a requirement for getting the majority of these dinos quickly and easily, and with as little pain as you possibly can. Now, this one right here, I have painted. No, I didn't find him in the wild like this. I have been asked a few times if I found him in the wild like this. He's just painted. It's kind of, as I do any of my playthroughs on the island, on any map really, taming an Argent is kind of like a rite of passage. When you finally reach that level of play where you can go out and into the wild, and you can either build a taming pen, or you can find one in the wild and you can knock it out and you can tame it. From then on, the game gets much easier. Not extremely easy, but it gets so much more easy once you have a nice Argentavis that you can depend on. Now also, as you go through the game and you get more Argentavises, you can specifically breed them, or you can imprint them and level them up to do certain tasks. A lot of people will say you need a Quetzal to be able to do metal runs. No, you do not. You can take an Argent that you have bred specifically for it and level up nothing but weight. And you can get Argents that can carry almost as much as a Quetzal. They're that good. You can also get Argents that can get hit points all the way up to 10k or so. You can get Argents that get damage almost up to 800 or 900% damage. It all depends on how you want to specialize your individual Argent. And if you've been playing as a solo player for so long, chances are you're going to have a fleet of Argents, and you're going to have individual ones for each individual task. Now, a lot of the times on my playthroughs on Soloing the Ark, I will just rely on one Argent, Super Dodo. On some of them, I will have ones that are specifically weight bred ones, specifically health bred ones, specifically ones for have extra stamina so I can go long distances, and ones that are just absolute powerhouses when it comes to dealing damage. Now, the dino nerf that happened a while back, it did hurt Argentavises, but I don't think that lowered their appeal any. I mean, they are slower, and it does open the doors for other dinos to come in and make you want to use different dinos for certain tasks. Say, like Tapejara, you can tame Quetzals with them really easily. A Pteranodon you can get from point A to point B really fast. But if you want to get there and you want to do it in style and you don't want to have any headaches along the way, an Argent is the dino of choice. So that is why they come in as the number 1 dino on my list. So hey, if you like the list, if you dislike the list, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the list, if it coincided with the ones that you specifically like as well. So hey, and I really look forward to reading the messages and then seeing how my list blends with your own, how it matches up with yours, because I know everybody's experience is different and everybody's opinion is different, and I look forward to being able to see all those different ones. I really look forward to that. All right, so hey, if you like the list, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that, and until next time, this is Phlinger. Take it easy, everyone.